The final score, Wrexham 0, Barnet 0. I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team. And if you're listening on the podcast, nice one, make sure that you subscribe. You can get the podcast on all your usual podcast apps. And of course, we have a lot more content that comes out throughout the week on there. And if you're watching it on the video, I need a haircut, don't I? What do you think? And also, this sort of under chin area, any tips on how to make it look less scrubby would be deeply appreciated. Oh yeah, the game. Sorry about that. A strange one, I think, maybe, in that it's a step forwards after the last 3 matches, but still, I think, disappointing that we weren't able to get the win. I mean, looking at it in Wrexham's context, we've just conceded 4 goals in our last 2 games. Last time I did that was in the Football League, not even the season we went down, but the season before that, where, if you remember, if you've got a taste for pain, we lost 5-0 on a very murky Tuesday night in Accrington. Went to Stockport the next Saturday, Adam Lafondra scored 4 goals, we lost 5-2. And then actually the next Tuesday we lost 4-1, although there are extenuating circumstances to that one. It was a League Cup game against Birmingham, away from home. They were a couple of divisions higher than us, and it was actually 1-1 at the end of 90 minutes. It was an extra time that we caved in. And still, that's a long way back to have achieved such a disappointing feat. And when it comes to losing 3 games in a row, which is what we'd also achieved running into this Barnet match, last time we did that was when Graham Barrow was manager. Remember that awful run of 5 defeats in January 2019? Anyway, we avoided that, but we will have hoped to have beaten the Barnet side, who have had a very difficult lead up to this match. Although, maybe it's slightly exaggerated the way that some people have seen it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Barnet didn't have an outbreak of COVID. They absolutely did, and it absolutely has been affecting their selection. 2 Saturdays ago, they had to cancel their league game against Hartlepool because they had cases. Their FA Cup match on Saturday, last Saturday, was at risk because they announced they had further cases amounting to 10, including the manager. However, they did play their FA Cup tie with a side bolstered by youth players, simply because the alternative was to just not turn up and be kicked out of the competition anyway. There was no point in that. And they won. And, well, they had a few back yesterday. So, by my calculation, there were 4 players missing due to the COVID outbreak yesterday. The key one of those was Scott Loach, their goalkeeper. In fact, you could argue perhaps that the weak link in their side was their keeper, Ayman Azari, making his debut in the league. He played his first game on Saturday in the FA Cup and didn't look completely convincing then, and didn't look completely convincing against Wrexham, but we weren't able to work him enough. And that's one of the disappointments, I think, that Wrexham had the better of the game, certainly didn't make enough chances to reflect that. Wrexham made changes as well. James Horsfield made way for Reece Hall-Johnson at right back. There was a reshuffle up front. Pleasingly, Jake Bickerstaff and Anthony Jeffrey were available again and lined up with Kwame Thomas as a target man. Unfortunately, by the end of the game, the good news of having 2 players back was offset by losing 2 defenders, and our injury crisis continues to take on really crazy proportions. But Wrexham started well. We imposed ourselves as a really good tempo. We were pushing high up the pitch. We were winning the ball back high up the pitch. And frankly, in the opening 10 minutes, it looked like one of those games where, yeah, Barnet were undercooked, they were under strength, and we would punish them. However, we did not make enough chances in that period, and slowly the momentum faded. Certainly, we were dominant throughout the first half, but we didn't really make any chances in the first half of that first half, except for a very early opportunity, very good pressure, ending of Luke Young hitting a trademark thunderbolt from 25 yards. Unfortunately, though, he didn't manage to pick up the corners, and it was a pretty easy save for Azari. As the half wore on, we started to make some more half chances. Anthony Jeffrey was looking very lively. He was playing on the left, but I'd noticed myself actually looking at some of Barnet's previous games this season, because they play a 4-4-2. They often are vulnerable in the hole, but in front of the centre backs, players coming in between them and midfield. and Jeffrey was doing exactly that. He was coming in a bit narrow from his left-sided position, and picking up really promising positions. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make the most of them, and I couldn't help wondering if his decision making had been conditioned by what happened the first time he got into that dangerous position. It was halfway through the half. He picked the ball up, a 4-on-3 break, went driving forwards. He had good runners either side of him and in front of him, but he decided instead to hit a 30-yard shot which went high into the cop. I'm not saying the shot was a bad choice, although I think a pass was a better one, but he had space to run into, so he could have got closer before hitting it. And I just got the feeling that messed with his decision making a little after that, because he got into those positions a few times and didn't really make them count. On one occasion he got into a similar spot and the shot was on, and he just took one touch too many, almost thinking back and thinking, all right, I'll get a bit closer this time, and overtouched it, and the chance was gone. The other advantage of Jeffrey tucking in a bit was that Record was able to get up and down the left-hand side really well, and he was picked out brilliantly, if Lainton meant it, by a long ball from the keeper, sending him in acres of space. He raced down the flank, pulled it back for Jeffrey. He swept in a vicious cross. Durrell lunged at it, couldn't quite reach it. So 4-4-2 against 4-4-2. Sometimes teams with the same formations can cancel each other out. This wasn't the case in the first half hour. Wrexham were winning their individual battles and were forcing Barnet deeper and deeper. But still the chances weren't coming. A quick free kick found Hall Johnson breaking down the right hand side. He ripped in a fabulous cross the edge of 6-yard box, but equally impressively Alex McQueen, the Barnet right back, managed to get there and at full stretch divert it over the bar before a Wrexham player could tap it in. And then at the end of the half came the closest we came in the first half, both coming from errors by the young goalkeeper. Firstly, well, there is no other way to describe it but a hoof by Kelleher from the halfway line. He just cleared his lines as far and as high as possible. Azari came out to the very edge of his area to deal with it, quite rightly. There was no pressure on him, and the ball was in the air a hell of a long time, but he misjudged it. He fumbled it, and it dropped him behind. We were all thrilled, thinking we would get a free gift of a goal, but unfortunately it was a defender that got there first to clear the ball. And then 2 minutes later, another opportunity. This time it was Jeffrey breaking down the left hand side to great effect. Lovely pullback by him. Found Kwame Thomas 10 yards out in acres of space. He should have done better, really. He had time to take a touch. He went for the first time finish, didn't really get hold of it properly, and didn't direct it well at all. It was straight at the keeper, just above his head. But Azari again fumbled it. He was lucky. It was almost, I said in the commentary, it was almost like in cricket where there's an edge to the slips, but the ball's not travelling quite as quickly as you think. And I think that's what happened, because Thomas didn't really get hold of it. Azari mistimed it. So it slipped through his hands, but cruelly for Wrexham, it dropped just outside the post rather than just inside. So a real let-off for Barnet. And Wrexham had completely dominated the first half, but really not created anywhere near enough. Second half began in a similar manner, but frankly Barnet were more involved, were able to come forward a bit more effectively, especially thanks to Dunn in the centre of midfield, who was dictating terms quite well. Their centre-backs as well had good battles with Wrexham strikers, and they started to come more into it. 10 minutes into the second half, Hall Johnson gave away a free kick perilously close to the penalty area, just on the left flank, level of the edge of the box. McQueen stepped up and went for goal, drilling it in, looking for the top left corner, and Lainton did well at his near post to parry it behind. On the hour, Wrexham had their best effort. Thomas, who was doing really well in the air, flicking it on. Jeffrey picking it up on the edge of the box, left-hand side, cutting it onto his right, and trying to rip a curler into the top corner. Good save this time by Azari. He's a very tall goalkeeper. He needed that height and those long arms at full stretch. He got across and poured it behind for the corner. Durrell drilled in that corner. A nice little preconceived move it looked like. Jay Harris had dropped off and made space 10 yards out and had a free header, but he couldn't put it on targets. That needed to glance it a bit more, put it wider than near post. Durrell again then threatening from a corner, and this was, well, maybe the closest Wrexham came to a goal. Swept in, Vassell got up and headed it firmly. It was off target, but Jeffrey had been standing on the keeper and was making his way out, and he managed from very close range to flick it on target. I think it was all he could do, in all honesty. He was off balance, moving away from goal, and he did well, I think, to divert it, but it was cleared off the line. Soon after that, Wrexham made the change. Jake Bickerstaff had made an excellent impact early on. The first 10-15 minutes, he was really troubling Barnet, but he started to fade out of the game. He is coming back from injury, to be fair. Adi Yusuf came on to replace him. It looked like a sensible move, because Yusuf did very well off the bench against Maidenhead, but he had a funny old time with it. He just didn't seem to be able to get into the game properly at all. Wrexham continued to try to push on. Hall Johnson sweeping in a free kick from the halfway line. Kelleher rising well 15 yards out, planting his head towards the bottom left corner. Zari, good footwork to come across and hold on to it. Before last 15 minutes, we had a few peculiar incidents. Started off with JJ Hooper, the old Wrexham striker, who played pretty well, didn't really have much threat in front of goal. Josh Walker, the other striker, looked a bit more dangerous, to be honest, but Hooper was dropping off into the hole himself and finding space and causing issues. Unfortunately for him, one of those issues involved Jay Harris, and you don't want to get into an argument with Jay Harris now, do you? Basically what happened, Hooper dropped off to the halfway line and then went in this really strong lateral run, trying to find a space to create something. He carried it too far, to be honest. It had the feeling of a player who was determined to make a point and was maybe trying a little too hard on this occasion. So he carried it wide. There was a time when he could have played in Walker. He chose not to. Harris came up behind, and Harris brought him down. Harris would be booked for his challenge, and deservedly so. However, Hooper retaliated, leaping to his feet, and he certainly raised his hands. I've not had a chance to see the video back yet, but to my eyes, he clearly seemed to butt Harris, who, to be fair, didn't make much of a drama of it. The referee came over and showed them both a yellow. Hooper was fortunate, I think, in all honesty, to get a yellow. There was a moment of frustration from that as well, because as Hooper was delaying his release of the pass, Vassell was running back and seemed to pull a muscle and had to come off. So Wrexham had lost one of their back four. Another would follow a couple of minutes later. And I've got to say, I'm annoyed about the circumstances of this. It was another coming together between Hooper and Harris, to be honest. Right down in front of me on the touchline, Harris is breaking forwards. Hooper tripped him, clearly. The referee astonishingly didn't give it. I don't think it was a second yellow for Hooper, I'm not trying to say that, but it was a blatant foul. Remarkably, the referee didn't give it. Barnet broke forwards. The ball was fed to Walker, and he in the end managed to hit a shot which took a bit of a nick and was saved by Lainton. However, in the process, Hall Johnson went down hurt, and after a lengthy spell of treatment, he had to go off as well. So Wrexham had lost another defender. If the ref had given the clear free kick, that would not have happened, which is what annoys me. Hall Johnson would have been fine. So as it is, Wrexham had lost two of the back four. By this point now, Fika Gallagher was the only player who started in the back four who was in the same position, because Jamie Record had to tuck in to left-sided centre-back, Jamie Davis had come on at left-back, and James Horsfield had come on at right-back. Wrexham looked to push on. Davis, of course, has got good delivery from set pieces. He looped in some interesting corners. He swept the ball in for Kelleher 6 yards out. He met it with a firm header, but a defender got up between him and goal, managed to deflect it behind for a corner. But then the last chance of the match came in added time, and it fell to Barnet. Again, it was Hooper doing well to pick it up on the edge of the area and squaring it on. Walker in the left channel drove the ball in towards the bottom left corner. Lainton did well again to get down and tip it round the post. And then from the corner, well, again, I need to see the video on this because it was a strange incident. The corner was swept in, and Preston, the centre-back, had looked like a clear header, easy chance to score 6 yards out. He glanced it just wide. Immediately, everybody in the box went mad and started appealing to the referee. I think Barnet was shouting for a handball. I didn't see it myself. I assume Wrexham were just desperately appealing for anything to make sure the ref didn't give a penalty. The ref gave nothing, and that was that. So yeah, baby steps forwards. It's clean sheets. It's a draw, stopping the run of defeats, and Barnet under strength, maybe not quite as under strength as we expected them to be, but still you feel frustrated that we weren't able to create opportunities or work a young keeper who looked a little shaky. Lainton was good in goal, 3 good saves in the second half. Back four did fine. I was impressed by the full-backs, who defended solidly enough and got forwards well. Hall Johnson I was really pleased with. Again, up against a good winger. Petrasso is a Canadian international, scored 2 goals in his debut on Saturday, and he looked very tidy and skillful. But Hall Johnson defended very well against him, actually. It was a good duel, and he won it. And Hall Johnson also was bursting forwards to good effect. The centre-backs, Kelleher was very impressive, very strong. Vassell made a couple of mistakes in the first half, but having said that, he also did some nice bits of work twice. He found himself isolated in the box and dealt with it really well by staying on his feet. The most dangerous one, when McQueen was running at him into the box, looked like he got past him into a really dangerous position, but Vassell didn't jump in, stayed on his feet, used his pace, and was able to just take the ball off him. It was an excellent piece of defending. In midfield, Harris and Young, lots of endeavour. Young in the first half an hour was speeding around all over the place and slowed down a little bit as the game went on. Harris was looking to prompt and feed things in, but found it difficult to thread good service through to the strikers, in all honesty. On the flanks, on the left, Jeffrey was, I guess, my man of the match. The end product wasn't always there, and that was a problem for us today, but his pace was massively important in the transition. He was driving forwards, taking the game to Barnet, and it was when he got the ball that you actually started to feel Wrexham looked menacing. On the right, I think Durrell will be a bit disappointed. He was good early on. He made an awful lot of good challenges. It was interesting. I don't think I've ever seen him do that in that way. Wrexham were pressing high at the pitch, and he was catching Connors off in possession quite often, or at least getting a tackle in and creating a loose ball. But I think he'd have been frustrated in the second half when quite a number of times he was played in and had Connors isolated, and he was winning corners off him, which aren't the worst thing in the world, but to be honest, he should have been hitting the box, I think. A number of times Connors got the block in. Now, Connors defended very well, to be fair to him, but I think Durrell would have been disappointed not to have found players in the box, or at least get the ball into the box more regularly. Bickerstaff, as I said earlier, started brightly but faded a bit, which is understandable when he's gone back from injury. And Thomas, I thought, did well. He was a target man, that's his job. He won the aerial battle, definitely, against Pascal. He's one of those players who you feel never quite looks in control of the ball, but he was linking up play okay, he was holding it up all right. The issue here, for me, is that really those flick-ons generally are not the assist, they're the pre-assist. They're the touch on to the player who can then open up the defence. And we weren't doing that, so I feel Thomas did his part of the job pretty well, but then we didn't take it a step further. It does emphasise, I know I've been going on about this, I really think we're missing Ponticelli. It'd be great to see him getting games under his belt and getting on the pitch, because that link-up looks obvious. Thomas in the air, flicking it on, Ponticelli in the brief time we've seen with those two together as a front two was combining well with him, and that could then make Thomas's flick-ons an assist because Ponticelli reads them and has the pace to get in there. So yeah, oh well, ifs and buts, never mind. Anyway, I've been Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team. Remember that you can watch our videos. The highlights will be up at 10 o'clock tonight. Lots of other podcasts. We have our regular scouting podcast, the lowdown about our next opposition out the day before every match. We have Dragonheart, of course, on Friday, and lots more besides. Halftime show where we play back things that we've discussed at halftime, question and answers from the live streams after matches. So loads of podcasts, loads of content there, plenty of content on our YouTube channel as well. So there's lots to keep you busy in between matches. But with a final score of Barnet 0, Wrexham 0, I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.